It's 10 o'clock. It's time for the public inquiry to resume. Just before we get started, Mr. Clegg, was there something you wanted to raise?
The only thing to mention very quickly is that concerns have been expressed previously about the timetable. We understand that progress is being made with the weeks that appeared congested, which I think were weeks 4 and 7, and we're hopeful that that will soon be finalised and that we'll be able to complete proceedings in time.
So on week 4, which
Yes.
is the CPPF witnesses,
Yes.
I did discuss this with Mr. Parker, who's not here, but I'm sure he won't mind me saying that in order to relieve the congestion, we had suggested, and I mentioned this to the programme officer, that although Mr. Ellis, for the applicant, should come before the CPPF, in order to relieve congestion, he could come afterwards, and therefore we could be reasonably sure, don't put it any higher than that, that we get through the CPPF case
Yes.
that week. And that was the aim of that.
Yes.
So on other aspects of the programme, I noticed that next week there's nothing down for Thursday and Friday. We are, as you will be, anxious to use the time we've got so that we don't end up with everything being squeezed into the last block. But if that is going to be the case, nothing on Thursday and Friday, could we, not now, but through you, have confirmation of that? Because we need to plan who's going to be here, who isn't, what we need to prepare for, and so on. So we really need to know today what the decision is on that, if possible, please.
Yes, that's entirely fair, Mr. Cameron. And we had been hoping that we could move things along that far. That seems unlikely, but can we come back with a definitive view at the beginning of the afternoon session on that?
Thank you very much, sir.
In terms of the first point you raised about the evidence from Mr. Ellis and Mr. Oldfield, generally we would want to hear Mr. Ellis first, but I think taking a purely pragmatic approach to make sure that we can deal with things as efficiently as possible, we're not opposed to your suggestion on that.
Thank you. I mean, normally we would want Mr. Ellis to come first, but we acknowledge that part of the issue is he's not available till then, so partly it's down to us, and therefore we're trying to be accommodating.
Yes, we anticipated that was the situation.
Okay, thank you. In that case, sorry, I was looking at week 4 because we were talking about it rather than today. In that case, in terms of today's programme, the first witness I've got is Mr. Davies from the North Newham Residents Association. If you don't mind, it's not necessarily to put you on the spot. It just means that you've got access to a microphone if you sit on that table. Can you just check? There should be a red button on the front of the microphone. Can you just? It's the bottom one there. If you press it, can you just see if it's working?
There's a red light appeared, and I think it's working.
Yes, that's great. Mr. Davies, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and the organisation you represent, and then you can give us your evidence.
Indeed, thank you. I'm Davies from the North Newham Residents Association. The North Newham Residents Association is basically bounded in the north by Madingley Road, in the east by Grange Road, in the west by Wilberforce Road, and in the south by Herschel Road. It is a block of residential and college and university buildings, and we are effectively directly affected one way or another by the proposals for the Cambourne to Cambridge busway.
Mr. Davies, sorry to interrupt so early on. Can you just give me those roads again while I've got mine?
So Grange Road,
Got it, yeah.
Herschel Road,
Yes,
Madingley Road,
yes.
and Wilberforce Road.
Yes, thank you very much.
So those are the sort of boundaries, but in fact, for example, there is a new development which is called by St John's College, which is also part of the area, although not part of our membership. Our membership is basically the residents rather than the institutions.
Yeah.
So the busway affects us in any case, in as much as the three proposals for routes are at the north end, at the south end, and in the middle of our association area. My role in the Residents Association is dealing with the local plan, and I have been doing that for a number of years now. We contributed to the existing local plan, and we have made similar propositions to the developing local plan. As far as the local plan is concerned, we recognise that there is a need for housing development, and if you look at Cambridge per se, it's an expensive location. There is a shortage of affordable housing, and whether people like it or not, there will be a need for housing development in the region. We have always supported the Greater Cambridge Partnership and the County Council and the local council in terms of developing necklace villages at a distance from Cambridge as new settlements, because from our perspective the alternative would be simply for Cambridge to spill out and merge with the villages around it, and from a practical point of view that is an undesirable development. We would like to see the green belt preserved, but at the same time we recognise that there is a need for housing development, and that the current strategy in the existing local plan and the proposed strategy in the new local plan is for that development to exist at some distance from Cambridge, but also connected to Cambridge by good public transport. So if you look at the current local plan, the inspector commented on the developments in Cambourne that there was an absence of proposals for good public transport links between the necklace villages and the centre of Cambridge itself. We're looking at a development of about 7,000 plus houses in the west, in Bourne Airfield and Cambourne. That is a significant increase, and it's a necessary increase. I know there are people that say that Cambridge is full and should not be developed further. It's an attractive proposition, but to be frank, I think it's a completely unrealistic proposition. And so the question is, how do you deal with these settlements that are some distance away from Cambridge that are not really appropriate for active transport modes? And our view is that you need to have good public transport connections between these settlements and Cambridge itself. The issue is that the road network around Cambridge is congested and has become increasingly congested over the last 20 to 30 years. So what does one do about that? Well, in order to provide good public access, it is our assertion that you need to separate that public transport from general traffic. And by doing so, you will provide the reliability to public transport that is currently absent. Is an obvious way of doing that. We appreciate that it has some negative effects, but I think if you take the picture as a whole, it will be beneficial to the development of Cambridge to have these links. There are existing busways in place and they've been successful, and by separating public transport from general traffic, you avoid the lack of reliability, certainly in the busiest periods of time. We have a congested road network today. If you look at, for example, taking a bus from the North Newnham area, from Grange Road, into the centre of Cambridge and to the railway station, the biggest problem is the congestion on Madingley Road. There are a number of junctions, traffic lights. Each of these lead to interaction between public transport and general traffic. That interaction leads to delay and more importantly to variation in delay. And it's this variation in delay that leads to the unreliability of public transport services. And in order to eliminate that variation in delay, the obvious solution is to segregate public transport from general traffic. If you do that, then you remove the interactions, you remove the sources of variable delay, and you increase reliability. That is the logic behind this separation, and that is one of the reasons why we support the busway. As far as public transport is concerned, I think everybody will accept that it is a much greener solution. It is much more efficient in terms of transporting people, and from that point of view, it has its own, as it were, good ecological credentials. But people will only use public transport seriously if they know that it is reliable and functional and frequent. So at the moment, the reliability of services into the centre of Cambridge is quite poor. If I want, for example, to get to the railway station, the notional journey time is only 20 minutes, and there is a 15-minute bus service, but in reality, I would need to allow another 20 minutes, half an hour, because of the unreliability of the buses caused by congestion on Madingley Road. So it's this issue of removing the sources of congestion and allowing buses their own route that makes the busway a relevant and an important way of providing access between the necklace villages and the centre of Cambridge. As I have said, the alternative would be simply to develop Cambridge out into the green belt, and that in itself has got its own issues and challenges. One point that is important as far as our residents' association is concerned is a proposal, not as part of the plan that's been put forward for discussion in this inquiry, to use Adams Road as opposed to the track to the south of our area. We think this is a very bad idea. We believe that there's no reason to truncate the busway anywhere before the start of Grange Road. And also, Adams Road is a major cycle route between the centre of Cambridge and the university, which is now increasingly locating to the west of Cambridge. In summary, we need housing development whether people like it or not, and I think we have to recognise that Cambridge is a growing economic area and a vibrant economic area, and it has shortages of housing. It is a medieval town, which its own character is based around the fact it is a medieval town, and therefore developing road infrastructure to provide much more capacity is not a realistic option. Public transport is important. It's important in terms of the local plan development, and it has always been important in terms of the local plan development. And our position as a residents' association has all along been that we support this remote development in necklace villages, but the implication associated with that is you need public transport connections. We think that it's only by segregating traffic, general traffic from public transport, that you will actually provide the reliability and the frequency that make it an attractive option for people living in the remote, the necklace villages. The alternative we see as being a spread of Cambridge, which we think is significantly undesirable. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davies. Mr. Davies, I've got some questions for you,
yes.
but before I myself and Mr. Clegg ask those, I just want to see if there's anybody else who is opposing the scheme who's got any questions for Mr. Davies that they want to ask. I can't. Yep. Sorry. just double check. Sorry, that is questions for people who are actually speaking at the inquiry. Will you be speaking?
I'm speaking, yes.
Yeah. If you just hold on, we'll get a roving microphone, and then if you can just introduce yourself and ask the question, please. Sorry, yes, I should have added that the opportunity to speak is for those who are actually participating in the inquiry, not just a general invitation.
Who is that microphone there? I don't know whether
If the roving mic's going to take a while, thank you, Mr. Cameron.
Did you want me to ask now?
If you just introduce yourself and then ask.
Hi, Di. I'm Wendy Blythe. I'm chair of the Federation of Cambridge Residents Associations, and I'll be speaking later. I completely empathise with all the comments that Di's made on behalf of the North Newnham Residents Association. I'm just interested to know what there's made no comment about the alternative option from CPPF. Do you think that's not a great option? And also, I know that members of your association or your connections have been very, very interested in the possibility of looking at light rail. Is that something that was also your association ruled out? I'm just interested because I think we need to know the full picture, and as I say, I'm a graduate of Churchill, so I know Madingley Road well. I would share all the same concerns that this association.
So Mr. Davies, I think Ms. Blythe's questions were firstly your view whether the Resident Association has any views on the CPPF alternative scheme, which uses which is suggesting to use Madingley Road, and I think secondly was about whether the Residents Association have any particular views about any light rail suggestions.
But I don't think CPPF is. I think the particular option that people are interested in is the one between Madingley Mulch and Cambourne. I think that's what we're talking about.
So I have looked.
Well, actually, just to clarify, I think the CPPF alternative is actually the other way. It's between Madingley Mulch and Cambridge.
Yeah.
Yes. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not the.
But it's the
CPPF subjection I don't think extends much further than Madingley Mulch.
Yes. Sorry.
Just to clarify.
Yeah.
So if I could start with the alternatives, the CPPF proposed alternative. I think if you look at congestion and the nature of congestion, it is about interactions between public transport and private transport. They are essentially related to the capacity available at any given time on a road network. The reality is that the road network is, in its busiest hours, congested. And if you look at Madingley Road, for example, there are a number of junctions, there are a number of traffic lights, all of which lead to an interaction between public transport and private transport. Those interactions are the things that cause delay, and they cause, most importantly, variability of delay. And it's that variability of delay that makes public transport unattractive. I have not seen anything in the CPPF proposal that eliminates that variability of delay, and absent the improvement to addressing the problem of variability delay, the interactions are still there. You can suggest intelligent traffic lights, you can suggest a number of different things, but the reality is that interaction between public transport and private transport on congested roads could only lead to variability of delay, leading to unreliability. The advantage of the separate dedicated infrastructure solution is that eliminates those problems because the interactions are eliminated. It has other additional advantages in as much as it provides additional cycle traffic and additional pedestrian capacity. But those, from the point of view of the necklace villages, it is the improvement in reliability. I don't think the journey times, the fastest journey times, will improve very much, but the reality is that the journey times need to be predictable and reliable, and that is our position, that the only way of doing that is with the segregation of public transport via a dedicated busway. As regards the technology, I think there is a difference between buses and rail. Buses are inherently flexible. They can go to other places, whereas a rail option is very much defined by the track. There have been various proposals as far as Cambridge is concerned for tunnelled metro systems and things like that. They might sound very attractive, but I think in reality there are cost implications and feasibility implications in terms of that type of proposal. So we have assumed that the bus option is the best option, given the flexibility that buses provide, given that the unit size of a bus is relatively small. And it is possible that in years to come, different technologies would be more appropriate. But our working assumption has always been that this is a technical decision, and it's based on the reality of transport planning.
Thank you, Mr. Davies. Somebody's got their hand up there. Can I just clarify? Are you speaking, giving evidence at the inquiry?
Oh yes, my name is Dr. Marilyn Tracy.
Apologies, and you did give evidence earlier. Sorry, I didn't recognise you there.
Would you like me to repeat that?
So, yes, I was talking over you, Dr.
Yeah.
Tracy. If you could introduce yourself and then ask your question.
Yes, good morning. My name is Dr. Marilyn Tracy from the Cambourne Busway Action Group. I'd like to ask Mr. Davies 2 questions. The first is his view about the route of the busway from Madingley Mulch to the university site unanimous amongst the Residents' Association of North Newnham? That's my first question. And my second question is, I may have misunderstood, but I think you said if you take public transport from Grange Road to the station or city centre, traffic along the Madingley Road is one of the major problems. My understanding of it is that the U-bus doesn't go back out to Madingley Road, it goes into the city centre by a different route, and that congestion is the problem on that route. Could you clarify those 2 issues, please?
Right. So as far as the position of the Residents' Association is concerned, this is the position that we have reflected in written communications to our membership for some 10 years now, in terms of the preparation of the previous local plan, and it is something that we have reiterated at our general meeting. So it's a position that is widely shared as far as the membership is concerned. To claim that the membership is unanimous in its support of it would be a little optimistic. I'm aware of certainly one vociferous critic of this proposal, but in general at our most recent AGM, where we had a representative of all the membership, it was supported and widely supported with one objection. Unanimity in a group of 100 people is not very realistic, but in reality I think it's fair to say that our membership supports it. The committee elected by the members are entirely behind this position.
Thank you.
With regard to the universal bus does indeed go along Madingley Road. It goes from Eddington across into the university, the West Cambridge site, but then it comes back out again and comes along the Madingley Road. So the interesting thing is if you stand at sort of 8 o'clock in the morning waiting for a bus, you can watch the delay appear on the sort of the bus descriptors, and you can see that something which is scheduled to take 2 minutes will end up taking considerably longer, and that is because of all the junctions, all the traffic lights, all the interactions between public transport, the bus, universal bus, and general traffic. But it does go along Madingley Road. Subsequent to that, Grange Road is traffic calmed and relatively free. West Road is again an uncongested road. and it has a separate axis on Queen's Road, and then it goes into effectively what is a traffic-free area of Silver Street. So it is the Madingley Road that is the critical factor in the unreliability of the service.
Thank you, Mr. Davies. Is there anyone else who's appearing at the inquiry and opposing the proposal who wants to ask Mr. Davies any questions? I can't see that there's anybody else asking any questions. If I can just ask Mr. Davies, just going back to the issue about Madingley Road, and you mentioned how congestion affects bus services. Can I just be clear? Obviously the proposal would that's before us would lead buses would join sort of the general traffic, if I can call it that, at Grange Road. Is the congestion affecting buses that you're talking about? Is that along Madingley Road to the west of the junction with Grange Road, or to the east? I'm conscious from what we've heard from yourself and other people about congestion, sort of the closer you get to the city centre.
So as far as the particular bus route that I was describing is concerned, it goes from the west along Madingley Road to Grange Road and then turns into Grange Road. The issue with Madingley Road in general is the number of traffic lights and junctions on that road. As far as buses going into the centre is concerned, or directly along Madingley Road to Queen's Road, I would expect that the same problem occurs. Now, I wasn't quite sure what your second point about the centre of Cambridge is concerned.
Well, I was just trying to understand the congestion you're concerned about is congestion for buses travelling towards the city centre along Madingley Road.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Also, Mr. Davies, just a point of clarification. You mentioned how the residents group's been engaging in the emerging local plan, and you mentioned a figure of 7,000 homes to the west. Was that a reference to what's being proposed in the emerging?
In the emerging plan, yes.
Okay, thank you. I think those are the only 2 points in clarification I wanted to ask, but I'm sure Mr. Cleggs might have a question.
I've just got one for you, Mr. Davies. So we know your organisation supports the proposed scheme.
Yeah.
Are you entirely happy with the route?
Yes.
Yeah.
With the route as proposed, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davies. Thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us today. And thank you.
Thank you.
Now, the next person I've got on the list is Mr. Strauss. Yes. And if you wouldn't mind coming up to the table.
Thank you very much.
And once you're comfortable, I think the microphone's still working, which is good. If you'd like to introduce yourself, and then briefly just explain whether you're supporting or opposing the proposal, and then if you'd like to say what you'd like to say to us, please.
Thank you very much. Yes, my name's Dan Strauss. I'm a resident of Adams Road, and Adams Road, yes, sorry. And I support the application as a whole, and I support the use of the rifle range route. Now, Claire Hall, who sadly aren't here today, are going to tell you that Adams Road is a valid alternative to rifle range for the busway along the final section before Grange Road. But I hope to show you why that's wrong. Only rifle range can provide a segregated route for buses, keeping cyclists and pedestrians safe, and importantly, passengers on time, as Di has alluded to. I led a campaign to persuade the GCP to revert to their original route for the busway, rifle range, and we gained over 3,300 people, signatures on the petition that we ran in support in May 2020. And really it's their voices that I want you to hear today. Now, Adams Road is busy. In November 2024, the Coton cycle path, which is just to the west of Adams Road, was the second, not the third as I originally said, I apologise. It was the second busiest cycle route in Cambridge according to the County Council's statistics. That's a daily peak of 4,186 cyclists in November 2024 and an hourly peak on the 5th of November 2024 between 5 and 6 p.m. of 536. Now, unfortunately, Adams Road itself doesn't have its own cycle traffic counter, but both these figures would be higher for Adams Road on its own because the Coton footpath, the Coton cycle path counter doesn't include the many who use Adams Road purely to access the sports ground, more of which in a minute, or who head north along Wilberforce Road. So it's lost a large number of cyclists, which we're going to help you estimate shortly. Now, before and after lectures in term time, the morning commute to work and school, after lab work finishes and during exam season, peak time usage of Adams Road soars. Clare Hall ignores all this, saying that adding 200 buses a day to Adams Road would provide a safe route for cyclists. Now compare these thousands of cyclists per day on Adams Road to rifle range cycle traffic. Well, 10 cyclists a day would be unusually high. The second point about Adams Road is what's happening to the west, as Di alluded to. It's the university's West Cambridge site. At the moment, there are 4,000 employees there. By 2041, there are projected to be 15,000 and 4 million square feet of new lab, lecture, study and office space. The 2016 outline planning application for West Cambridge contains 7,000 extra cycle parking places. And the vast majority of these cyclists and pedestrians who will be working there will use Adams Road to connect with the city centre and vice versa. So the demand is going to increase continuously. And there have also been other recent developments that have increased cycle, pedestrian and car traffic along Adams Road recently, and they are unfortunately ignored by Clare Hall. The Wilberforce Road Sports Ground. It's home at the West End. It's home to the largest hockey facility in the eastern region. Coaches, cars, cyclists and pedestrians access the grounds principally via Adams Road, 5:30 to 9:30 p.m. Mondays to Thursday. The car park with 120 spaces is full. Multiple teams and groups coming and going throughout that period, usually an hour and a half per session. All through school term times, minibuses and school groups come and go as well, and also Saturdays from September to December and January to April. For bigger athletics events, up to 20 coaches and 200 cars along with cyclists attend. My source for this is the Safety and Compliance Manager at University of Cambridge Sport, Simon Cornish. The other major development on the road, which is ignored by Clare Hall, is the St John's new development, Hinsley Lane, opened at the West End with 245 bedrooms. Many of these residents use Adams Road, as well as the residents' delivery drivers from Amazon, Deliveroo, etc. Compare this to Rifle Range, which carries none of this extra traffic to the sports centre or Hinsley Lane. So, what makes the physical structure of Adams Road so unsuitable as a busway? Well, firstly, the road has 3 junctions which are busy and complex. The 4-way crossroads of Wilberforce Road, Adams Road, the Coton Cycle and Footpath, and the access road to Hinsley Lane and the Sports Ground. Here you have the second busiest cycle route in Cambridge, converging at the entrance of the Sports Ground with its peak time evening activities, and cars crossing from Wilberforce Road into the Sports Ground. An accident waiting to happen, and that's without 200 buses a day. The other junction is the Sylvester and Adams Road junction, a 90-degree sharp bend. And finally, the 4-way junction onto Grange Road, with cyclists turning left, right, or going straight on into the town centre. Again, I ask you to compare this to Rifle Range. Rifle Range has no junctions other than where it meets Grange Road, and a small entrance to a yard at the same point. Now let's examine Adams Road in a bit more detail. This supposedly safe cycling route, according to Clare Hall, and ideal for putting 200 buses down. Adams Road has 34 vehicle access points for residential and student housing. So let's think about that. That's 34 points at which vehicles can reverse out into Adams Road, into what Clare Hall suggests should be the busway. That's 34 points where bin lorries will stop on their weekly collections, 34 points where delivery drivers will leave their vans as they make their drop-offs. Again, I ask you to compare this to Rifle Range, which has just 7 pedestrian access points, which will give out onto a walking and cycling shared path, fully segregated from the busway. In addition, on Adams Road, a key feature utterly ignored by Clare Hall is Robinson College's service yard at the east end of Adams Road, hard on the junction with Grange Road. This sees 81 HGV lorries reverse off Adams Road into the yard each week. Any delivery driver knows you don't go in head first, you can't turn round inside that yard, you have to reverse into it. So the spectacle, which local residents and many users of the road have seen countless times, is of a large HGV reversing at peak time into this service yard, completely legally. How else are you going to make your delivery? Unfortunately, this is supposedly, according to Clare Hall, the perfect place to put a busway. Those figures, by the way, were supplied to me by the bursar of Robinson College, who's the former bursar. I'd ask you again to compare that to Rifle Range. No deliveries from HGV lorries. Given the strategic importance of Adams Road, it's not surprising then that the GCP has recognised it as a key cycle and pedestrian route from villages and from the expanding West Cambridge site, as we've heard. The Comberton Greenway will include Adams Road, and work is due to start in early October. The road will be the first cycle street in the UK, and cyclists will have priority over all vehicles, including buses. Fortunately, you don't need to accept Clare Hall's contention that Adams Road would be a valid alternative to Rifle Range, because you have a truly safe option which will segregate pedestrians and cyclists from buses, and which doesn't have the additional hazards caused by the multiple access points, delivery and bin lorries, complex junctions and increasing levels of traffic. That safe route is the one already recommended to you by the council. It's the Rifle Range. And finally, I just wanted to say thank you very much for the site visit you did. However, on your return, I would ask if it would be possible to coincide it with the university term and also with a typical peak peak time moment in the life of the road. So you could see what's actually going on at the top of the hour when cycle and pedestrian traffic is highest. It's a typical time is lecture changeover. Any time really before 9 a.m., before 10 a.m., and then again around 12:45 to 1:15 would be an excellent time for you to see it, obviously during term time.
And Mr. Strauss, do you happen to know the term times for the...
I don't offhand, but I can provide those.
Yes, that would be helpful for the
Yep.
term time up to the end of this year. And the peak times that you've mentioned, before 9, before 10, and I think 12:45 to 1:15.
Yep.
Is there not a one later in the afternoon as well?
Well, of course, the other peak time is between 5 and 6,
5 and 6, thanks.
which again would be very useful visiting time, because you'd also see what's happening or beginning to happen at the sports centre then. The sports centre on the at the junction where Adams Road meets Wilberforce Road on the south side.
Yes.
I think you probably glimpsed it on your walkabout. You probably saw an athletics track
Yes.
or some large parking.
There is one other thing, perhaps, in connection with timings and dates. You mentioned that the physical works to the cycleway are due now to start in October.
Yes.
Do you know what the estimated duration of those works is, when they're likely to be complete? No, I'm sorry, you can't.
I believe it's 6 months,
Oh, right, okay.
but I can confirm.
We can check on that, sir, if it
Yes.
assists the inquiry.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Strauss. Sorry, just to double check, has that completed your...
It has, thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Thank you for the suggestions about site visits. Obviously, we'll take those into consideration.
Sure.
We are aiming to do a series of comprehensive site visits in the middle of November. I'm assuming that is term time.
Yes,
but
it is.
I don't know.
It is.
Obviously, we hear from evidence. We don't necessarily need to see things as they've been described, but if we are able to fit things into our programme that sort of meet those times, we'll endeavour to do so. But we can't guarantee that just because we've got quite a few sites that we'll need to see right along the route. So, Mr. Strauss, I think I think you probably answered most of my questions, but I was just going to ask if there's anybody else who's opposing the scheme who would like to ask Mr. Strauss any questions. I can't see anyone suggesting that. And again, just for clarification, I realise you're speaking as a resident rather than a promoter of the scheme, but the Cycle First scheme. In one of your appendices, there was a little sort of thumbnail sort of illustration. It appeared to show the cycle lane going down the centre of the street. Is that what you understand the configuration to be?
For the cycle street.
For the cycle street on
Correct.
Adams Road, yes.
Correct.
And
Cyclists will have priority in the centre lane. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, and again, I'm conscious that you're speaking as a resident, not the promoter of that particular scheme. I mean, there's an illustration of some on-road parking. When we had a site visit, we noticed there was quite a lot of on-road parking down there. Do you know if the amount of on-road parking is going to change as a result of the cycle scheme?
I think it's true to say it will be substantially reduced, and it will become what is left will be residents only.
And also, Mr. Strauss, you mentioned the cycle first lane that you said even buses will need to give way to cyclists.
Yeah.
Just to be clear, you also mentioned that coaches visiting the sports ground use Adams Road as one way of getting there.
Yeah.
Are there any sort of public transport scheduled services along Adams Road?
No.
So the buses that go along will be ones presumably taking people to the sports ground or somewhere else? And also finally, you mentioned the information that was provided about cycle counts, and that the actual counting point was at the start of the Coton Path, which is just the other side of Wilberforce Road, as I understand it, from Adams Road. You mentioned that based on that, you estimated that there'd be more cyclists using Adams Road than were perhaps picking up on that count. I'm assuming that was because you were suggesting that there'd be cyclists going both ways on Adams Road, but then either deciding to turn north up Wilberforce Road or south to the new student housing or the sports centre. Wouldn't the same be true of cyclists using the Coton route, that they may choose a different route and not go down Adams Road, and would that affect the count?
That's a good point, but the vast majority, I would suggest, of the traffic is coming from the city centre, particularly students using the sports centre, and that whilst yes, some may peel off coming east along Coton Path and maybe then go north along Wilberforce, the vast majority will be going from the town centre, from the colleges in the town centre, to do their sporting activities along Adams Road, straight into the Wilberforce Sports Ground, and not using the Coton cycle path.
And just to be clear, that's sort of your observation.
It is my observation.
Thank you. I think. You mentioned the residential properties and also student accommodation on Adams Road. Are there any other uses on Adams Road? For example, are there any sort of actual sort of university teaching facilities or anything like that, or is it just residential properties?
I think some of the Robinson houses on the road are shared student accommodation and teaching. There's also a small conference centre run by Robinson College on Adams Road.
Thank you. That's all the questions I've got, Mr. Smith. Thank you very much. And in terms of the next person in the programme, I've got a Mr. Davidson. Hello, Mr. Davidson. If you'd like to come and take a seat.
I hadn't planned to, but I will mention an alternative narrative around the Adams Road.
Well,
at the end of my presentation.
First of all, could you just could you introduce yourself and
yes, of course.
Explain sort of what your concerns are about it, and also, as I understand it, do you live on the on the estate, on the Goffway estate? Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So, sorry, I'll let you introduce yourself.
So well, thank you for allowing me to speak at the public inquiry. I'm representing myself, not an organisation. I've lived in Cambridge for 36 years, and I've lived in the area that will be impacted by the busway for 20 years. So I know the area very well. And first, I just want to say that I am actually supportive of a busway project, but I'm more supportive of the CPPF proposal that I've read. And also, I'd just like to add that the busway doesn't personally impact me. I'm not living on a road where it would go past me. My concerns are more about the cost of the off-road route. I'm supportive of the on-road route, and also I've been watching this since 2015. So I've participated in both the consultation processes, and I've read through a huge amount of documentation, which is at times overwhelming. I think there's about 15,000 pages in this submission. I'm not going to talk about flooding, although I live on Goffway. My house is at one of the topmost, the highest point of the estate, so it wouldn't personally affect me, but it would potentially affect my neighbours. You'll hear expert advice, presumably from Clare Hall and other representatives, and they can add much more value to this discussion than I possibly can. But I would like some guarantee from the GCP, if the scheme does go ahead over Binbrook and the rifle range, that there is something that the residents can fall back on if there is flooding caused in later years. So some sort of guarantee. Sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Davidson, but so my understanding, you're quite clear, you're not wanting to talk to us about flooding today, but the correspondence that you put into the inquiry does mention some concerns about flooding. Yes, it does, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, carry on.
Yes, of course, yeah. As I mentioned, I got the leaflet through from the Better Busway scheme back in 2015, and I think the GCP has been planning the route for a long period before that. But I must stress that a lot has changed in this city in the last 10 years, and I don't believe that the bus scheme has kept up to date with those changes. So one of the documents. Trumpington Park and Ride has a dedicated bus route to the Cambridge Biomedical Campus. Transit times probably about 35 minutes plus 10 minutes for delays on the M11. The M11, there are delays on there, but I think journey reliability overall would be better than transiting from Grange Road to the Cambridge railway station, which has really quite bad congestion in the morning. Okay, so why is it so important to deliver people to the Cambridge Biomedical Campus? Currently, to give you some context, West Cambridge has 4,000 people working there, as mentioned by Mr. Strauss. But the Biomedical Centre has 23,000 people working there today.
So how many?
23,000. The CEBR estimates that that number will double in 10 years' time. And the economic impact could be as high as £10.7 billion by 2035. By 2050, that number could rise to £18.2 billion. That really is the success story of Cambridge, is the biomedical campus. And the off-road scheme fails to deliver people there in a way that anyone would want to travel that route. And when I put this into the context of other transport projects, you're going to hear some evidence from East West Rail later in the inquiry. East West Rail should be up and running by 2034, and that will deliver passengers from Cambourne to Cambridge North, Cambridge Central and Cambridge South in 15 minutes plus 3 minutes to get to the Cambridge Biomedical Campus, so 18 minutes. I'm pretty certain that that would be the option of choice for anyone living in Cambourne in 2034. And these are some of the main changes that have happened. I think that the original 2015, the envisioning of the busway just didn't factor that in, the incredible success of the Cambridge Biomedical Campus. Also, so much so that you can see that they've been operating, the GCP's been operating in a silo, because one of the first objections I read on the website was by the EWR themselves, the East West Rail, that the route was in conflict with the rail route and the land that had been secured by the Transport Secretary for the strategic EWR project. As I mentioned, I think the CPPF proposal is much better. I'm going to talk about the cost of this and also the opportunity cost. I read in the summer this year that Heidi Alexander had put on hold the very important Ely Junction upgrade project. That has been called for by business leaders for about 10 years. And I think, actually, I've got a quote from a letter that was written to the Transport Secretary about the postponing of that very important scheme. So this is a letter written by 31 MPs, 20 business organisations, 11 council leaders and 3 university vice-chancellors. And in it they write, "The scheme has been in the pipeline for decades, with a case for its strengthening year on year. Lack of progress is now restricting growth and the region's progress to cleaner, greener transport connections." So when I first objected to the busway, the cost of the scheme was £192,284,900. Very exact number, which is quite interesting. However, I do need to point out that in 2011, the authority completed the first guided busway project. The original costs of that were estimated to be £84 million. There was a 76% overrun, the eventual cost being £148 million. If we apply the same overrun to this proposed scheme, the cost would be £339 million. That's part of £250 million. It's eye-watering. When we look at the environmental cost of this, I do hope, and I think in the pre-inquiry there was mention of you taking a site visit to Madingley Wood, special scientific site of interest, and the American Cemetery. I'd urge you to take a site visit if you haven't already done so. The option assessment appraisal, the option appraisal report part 2 was very damning of the on-road schemes. They scored the highest negative impact for biodiversity impact, and cited an excerpt from a consultation document from Natural England, which isn't included in the submission. The Natural England pointed out that the on-road route could impact the boundary of Madingley Wood, not Madingley Wood itself. The option appraisal report was unduly lenient on the impact to habitats at Coton Orchard. It didn't score it as a 1, which is the most severe negative impact. And you're going to hear lots of evidence, I think, from the Coton Orchard group about that environmental impact. Interesting as well that Natural England did raise concerns about the impact of invertebrates in Coton Orchard. Again, that should be somewhere in the submission. So I think, yeah, if you visit the American Cemetery, I've been there quite a few times. It's a fascinating place. You'll see that the grass verge to the hedge, and then a distance of about 200 yards, is full of car parking spaces and driveways. So there was the option appraisal report marks the on-road option heavily against that because there's some impact to the verge there. Yeah, I do question some of the marking. This is a road that already exists. We're planning on putting electric buses along it. I really am perplexed about how the perceived impact to those places is so high. And I think a site visit would be the best way to address that. I'm going to talk about now how this overlays into the actual scoring in the option appraisal report. He uses a scoring scheme of 1 to 3 for negative, 1 being the most negative, 4 for neutral, and then 5 to 7 as being a positive impact. I mean, I'm not doing this. I'm not paid to do this. So I've got limited time, so I've only looked at 3 of the themes within there, which is policy fit, quality of life, and stakeholder support. Stakeholder support is probably the most interesting one. I'll cover that last. But that, to me, really does expose bias that I think is unquestionable when you read the report. So within the policy fit, there's 6 key documents in there. A couple of local plans. There's I'll just list those documents out actually. So there's the Cambridge and Peterborough Local Transport Plan, the Highways England Road Investment Strategy, and the Greater Cambridge Peterborough Strategic Economic Plan, along with the original city deal and the Cambridgeshire and Cambridge local plans. So if you take what I said earlier about the CPPF being able to deliver people to the Cambridge Biomedical Centre and costing a fraction of the price, on some of the key areas that the CPPF would score much higher are things like maximising access to major employment centres and supporting economic growth, deliverability and integration with existing networks, maximising value for money and efficient use of resources, enhancing network capacity, accessibility and sustainable connectivity, and direct support for the Cambridge Biomedical Campus, which is listed in Policy 17 of the local plan. I've mentioned about the contribution to quality of life theme. On biodiversity, I'd reject the score of 2 for Madingley Wood. I think that should be 1. And the American Cemetery, that should be a 4. It's neutral again. I mean, there's the extant roads, and then for the off-road scheme, I think that the Coton Orchard really should have been scored a 1, which is the biggest negative impact. Again, it's not for me to score them, but I would urge you to take a look at that. Again, I'm just signposting you to some of this documentation. On heritage, the on-road again, I should be scored a 4, but it wasn't. And then on the green belt, the off-road score was a 2. I'm not really sure why that wasn't a 1. Like I said, these scores heavily influence the decision to go off-road rather than on-road, so it really does need to be revisited. Finally, on the stakeholder support, the option appraisal report completely ignores the first consultation, which happened in 2015, and instead skips on to the second consultation. Now, the figures from the first consultation, 66.8% of people were for the on-road scheme, and 65.5% were against the off-road scheme. That hasn't been included in the option assessment report. The second consultation was run, I guess because the GCP didn't like the results from the first consultation, and they presented options that divided the on-road camp. But still, when you combine all of the votes for on-road, it was 58% versus 33%. But this was enough, I believe, for the GCP then to try and get this over the line by creating focus groups of about 42 people, using the results from the consultations, picking people from areas that were generally supportive of the off-road scheme. There's also the local liaison forum that was set up to engage the community. The local liaison forum was vehemently against the off-road scheme, so much so that it was disbanded partway through this process. It wasn't what the GCP wanted. And also, I'd just like to point out that locally, in local elections, especially in the Newnham area, that the Green Party has won all the seats on the council, and this has been as a backlash, a protest vote, really to what's been going on with some of these proposals, especially this guided busway across the Green Belt and Coton Orchard. So I don't understand why on the stakeholder support section on the OAR they score exactly the same. It's baffling. So I think given that information, I'd just like to conclude that I think that the CPPF proposal really fits the needs today. It can be up and running quickly before the EWR scheme is implemented. It can get people to their big places of employment now reasonably quickly. Whereas I think that the off-road scheme is going to be stalled. It probably won't be delivered till EWR comes in. For example, I read in one of the mitigations for the Coton Orchard that there's a proposal to put netting around the roots of the ancient apple trees and wait for 3 years and then be able to perform a really highly risky move to then move them out the way of the path of the busway. It's just baffling. So that's really what I wanted to talk about today around the CPPF. But I think, given that Adams Road has been mentioned, I'll just briefly cover that and my views on that. But if you look at there has to be a scoring structure. It's the only way to evaluate different options. There has to be a method and formula. The original option appraisal report part 1 compares the rifle range with Adams Road. And I think if you actually, given everything that we know today, if you went back and re-evaluated that against that scoring structure, you would see that Adams Road would be the preferred option to run a busway down. I don't disagree with anything that Mr. Davies or Mr. Strauss has said. Certainly, cycling is an issue. However, when the option appraisal report part 1 was written, the idea of putting buses down Adams Road was only at a conceptual phase. There has been no design. The clever planners haven't had a chance to actually crack this problem. But there's a bit of a history around this. I think the North Newnham Residents Association is full of very clever people that understand how the planning process works. Let me just talk about the issue raised about the great crested newts, which was supposedly occupying a pond, which is only 7 years old. It's man-made, which would have been in the path of the busway if it came down Adams Road. Now, as a local resident, I walk around that area quite frequently. I see people walking their dogs going into a fairly shallow pond, throwing up sediment. It's surrounded by tarmac. There is no way there can be great crested newts living in that pond. There is great crested newts in Adams Bird Sanctuary. But again, this was just used as ammunition to try and deflect the route away from Adams Road. I mean, I do need to stress that Adams Road is not on greenbelt land, but I think more importantly, the cost of the bridge over Bin Brook, originally in the assessment report, it described it as a low structure, so as not to have an environmental impact. What's come to light is, of course, that structure has to be enormous because it has to survive a 1 in a 1,000-year flood event. And I think the original costs were £2 million to build the low-level bridge. How much does it cost now? So I think when you look at the scoring criteria on OAR Part 1, factoring in things like cost and biodiversity impact, then I'm afraid that the Adams Road would be the preferred option. And secondly, there are some very prominent politicians that live in that area who are also been instrumental in this whole project with the GCP. I'm not going to join the dots on that one, but I think that's something that is a concern in terms of a conflict of interest. And thirdly, the last thing as well, while I was listening to Mr. Strauss speaking, is the whole point of a bus scheme is to pick passengers up. How many passengers are you going to pick up from the rifle range? I mean, the whole point of buses is to put them into areas that have people living so that you can transport them. I'll just finish on that thought.
Sorry, thank you, Mr. Davidson. I'm now going to ask the applicants whether they want to ask any questions of Mr. Davidson.
Yes, please. One or two. Mr. Davidson's covered a lot of ground. I'm not going to go back over all of it. What I would like to ask you about, Mr. Davidson, are some points of principle, if we can.
Of course.
First point, you say in your statement of case, and we can turn up any of these documents, but I'll see you don't have access to them, so I will try and avoid that, but if necessary I'll go to them. But you say in your statement to the inquiry that you are supportive of a busway into Cambridge, but you're opposed to the proposed route. Now, can I just clarify, when you say you're supportive of a busway into Cambridge, do you mean a busway from Cambourne to Cambridge?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. And you also acknowledge, it's on page 5 of your statement if anybody wants it, that you're supportive of a busway which could complement East-West Rail.
Yes.
Is that right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you referred to East-West Rail's representations. Are you aware that they have said that they strongly support the principle of the proposed busway?
Yes.
And in terms of complementarity, you're concerned about people getting from Cambourne to work at the biomedical campus. East-West Rail would take them to the Cambridge South station to the biomedical campus, is that right?
Correct.
But it would not take them to employment, for example, at Cambridge West.
That's correct. The busway is needed to transport people to Cambridge West. And as Mr. Strauss has said, 4,000 people moving to possibly 15,000 people by 2041. Yes.
Thank you. Now, you support the CPPF alternative.
I do.
So you're in favour of a busway. You can see that it can complement East-West Rail because it's serving different locations.
Yeah.
And you say the means of achieving the objective you support is the CPPF alternative.
Yes.
I will have a chance to ask CPPF about their alternative, so I'm not going to ask you all about it. But just your understanding of it. In your statement, page 5, you say the CPPF proposal was written by a leading consultancy firm specialising in transport planning, transport infrastructure design and environmental assessments in the UK.
Yeah.
Which firm did you have in mind?
It's a while since I read the report. I mean, I read this, issued this statement of case back in March. I did look on the internet, I went through its client references, and I was suitably impressed by the work that they've done.
Sorry, it's an express reference, Mr. Davidson, to a leading consultancy firm. Which firm?
Yeah, I can give you the details after I can supply those to the public inquiry.
I think you're going to struggle because not even CPPF suggest it was written by a leading consultancy firm, but I look forward to your... Do you accept that it was not written by a leading consultancy firm, but by Mr. Edward Lee, who's a transport planner?
Yes, I mean, I did look at the credentials. It did feel like it was credible.
That's not what you said. You said written by a leading consultancy firm. Do you accept that's wrong?
I'd need to go back. Yeah, I can't answer that question. I'm sorry.
And you've said that one of the advantages. Well, let's just see the assumptions which led to your support for CPPF. We've looked at one, not going to look at all of them. You have said that you would put the adverse scoring for the CPPF route, and that's adverse effect on the American Military Cemetery, which is a Grade 1 registered park and garden and also has a listed building and is a memorial of some importance.
Yes.
You would put the adverse effect right down. Now,
yeah, I'd say neutral. Yeah.
You'd say it's neutral. And I'd like to just understand the basis for that, because you said that the basis for it was that it's an on-road scheme. In coming to that conclusion, what assumptions have you made, if any, about the need to extend the width of the carriageway?
I believe that the CPPF actually doesn't impact the width of the carriageway. However, I think the original on-road proposal did assume that there was some take off the verges at the side of the road.
So, in making your remarks today, have you assumed that the CPPF scheme leads to no extension of the running surface of the road by the cemetery?
Yeah, I mean, clearly...
Well, could you answer that?
Yes. Yeah, I do believe that there may be some small impact.
Well, were you aware that their scheme would add an additional lane as a bus lane, which would necessitate widening the road? Did you know that?
Yes, indeed. I think they're running it centrally as well.
Well, I don't need to tell you, but they're not. But they were, but they're not. And what do you envisage will happen with the CPPF scheme when it gets to the M11 overbridge? Have you thought about that? Because you're saying an advantage of their scheme is they can turn down the slip road, go down the M11 and go round to the biomedical campus. What happens when you get to the overbridge? Do you know what their proposals are?
Well, they're free to take a right turn, I would have thought, onto the slip road, and or certainly there's still scope, I think, for the CPPF to adjust their designs, but it would make absolute sense for them to turn right onto the slip road.
I'm only asking you about the assumptions you've made. Have you made any assumption?
Yeah.
Because you've also referred to delay. Any assumptions about the need to widen the bridge, the existing bridge over the M11?
Yeah, there is talk of...
I'm not asking you about talk. What assumptions have you made in order to come up with your evidence to this inquiry?
Reconfiguration, which would mean widening of the road over the bridge.
Right. And in terms of delay, have you considered how long that would take?
Are you talking about delay caused by works or...
Delay by consenting, works? Have you taken that into account?
Yes, of course.
You have.
I mean, this is relative compared to the off-road scheme, of course. There is an impact, yes.
Now, can I just ask you, I'm not going to ask you about revised scoring. We're not going to revise a whole options appraisal report sitting here by changing numbers. Flood risk. That was a major part of your initial submission, wasn't it?
Yes, it was, yeah.
And are you aware that the Environment Agency have considered the flood risk assessment and that they have withdrawn any objection? 19th of August 2025.
I saw the withdrawal, yes. But again, I think I would like to read about what Clare Hall has to say on that, because they have
by all means have a nice read, but have you read the flood risk assessment submitted by the applicant?
I have, yeah. It doesn't cover the Goffway estate.
You say it doesn't cover the Goffway estate. What it shows is that there will be a minimal increase in the extent of the area entirely within the red line for the application site, and a minimal increase in depth entirely within the application site and not on Goffway. Were you aware of that?
I'm not sure I believe that statement.
Well,
but I remember that a lot of this modelling is very, it's not an exact science. But I do need to remind you, the estate has been flooded twice. And on many occasions I've seen Binbrook nearly coming over its banks. It's a very, very vulnerable estate.
When you say that you don't believe the statement, are you saying that you don't believe the statement and the analysis in the flood risk work that's done and forms part of the environmental statement?
No, I don't believe it's comprehensive enough. I believe that the modelling should be detailed enough to cover the Goffway estate, not make assumptions that because it's downstream, that therefore there's no impact further. Sorry, I got the wrong way around. There's no impact to the Goffway estate. I think it just needs to be more comprehensive.
Do you put forward any alternative flood risk assessment yourself?
Well, I think it would have to be from a completely neutral party. I don't. If the GCP commissioned a team to conduct a flood risk, I would. I don't think I would trust the outcome of that report anymore.
And going back to the question, do you put forward an alternative flood risk assessment? Is it in your evidence? I don't think it's a very difficult question to answer.
No, well, this is why I skipped over that, because there's experts, flood risk experts, who will have that debate. I'm not clearly not an expert in flood risk, so that's why I haven't commented on it today.
So, Mr. Davidson, you're not an expert. You don't put forward an alternative analysis of flood risk to that contained in the environmental statement, do you?
No.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Those are the only questions I've got for you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cameron. Is there anybody else who's supporting the scheme who wants to ask Mr. Davidson any questions? In that case, I think I've just got a couple of questions. Mr. Clegg, have you got anything you want to ask Mr. Davidson? Yeah, if you can first, I'll just get
Mr. Davidson, I just want to try and catch up with some of the figures that you mentioned in your presentation to the inquiry. You were talking about the biomedical campus.
Yes.
And a couple of figures of value. I jotted down quickly, 10 billion and 18 billion.
By 2050, which is
Well,
obviously
yeah.
a long way off. Yeah.
First of all, tell me what is it 10 billion the first figure?
So the CEBR puts a range of 8.8 billion to 10.7 billion.
8.8.
To 10.7 billion.
And what does that relate to?
That's the economic impact to the wider economy as a whole. This is the the innovation economy which is flourishing in that campus.
And are you referring to the local economy or?
Well, it would be the national economy.
National. Right, and was there a date on that figure that you gave?
Yes, 2035.
Right, so it's a projected figure.
It is a projected figure.
And then I think you said it could rise to 18 billion.
Yes, again in the same report by the CEBR.
And was the date for that? Yeah.
The report.
The date for the 18 billion.
Oh, that was 2050.
And the report you took those figures from the
CEBR.
Yeah. Do you know when the report was produced?
I don't know the exact date.
Up-to-date projections.
I mean, it's quite a recent report, but it's I can't give a specific date. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Is it? I don't think it's one you've put in, is it? Next.
It's not in my statement of case.
Right. Okay.
But I did mention it today.
And the other thing I didn't catch, one of the areas you wanted to talk about was quality of life, and then you went on to give your thoughts about scoring.
Yes.
I think you started off with Madingley Wood.
Yeah, that's right.
And I just want to make sure I've got that. Can you just go back to those figures to make sure I've noted them down correctly?
Yes, of course. Yeah, I'll just need to quickly go back through my.
I've got to know. I think I've written down you rejected a score of 2.
Yeah, the scoring is quite concentrated actually into. If you just skip to like page 56, 60, then there's another 20 pages which provide the scoring and then a justification for the scoring.
Yes.
But I think they were unduly penalised in my view. But so for biodiversity impact.
And now, which scheme are you talking about here?
This was the original on-road proposal, which has changed now because the CPPF
Yes.
is slightly different.
So for on-road at Madingley Wood,
That scored a 1, which is the most adverse impact. What's interesting is that and I know Mr. Cameron said we're not going to go over the scoring again, and of course, that's kind of history now. But the point I'm making is that the consultation and the scoring was fundamentally flawed, and that was the pivotal point at which the off-road scheme was considered a better option than on-road.
I think you said you rejected the score for Madingley Wood.
Yes.
And what was the figure you gave?
Well, I believe it's a neutral impact. The road is extant. It's already there, and there's already vehicles that are passing. I think with these policies, maybe Natural England's view, and I have worked in government before, and I do understand how policy works. But the policy may have been written with the perspective that there was no road at all next to Madingley Wood. It was just fields, and that there was a scheme to put a road next to it. What the policy hasn't considered that this is just a simple reconfiguration of the roads past Madingley Wood, and it can't possibly have the highest negative adverse impact.
And I think you mentioned heritage. You mentioned that again in relation to Mr. Cameron. I've got that down. I think you then went on to refer to a score in relation to the green belt.
Yes.
Can you tell me what that was?
Yeah, I think the off-road scheme does score a 2, which is a moderate adverse impact. However, most of the route is across Greenbelt, and you'll hear evidence from Coat and Orchard about how destructive it is to the habitats. And then, of course, it runs across the Westfields again, which is Greenbelt and agricultural land.
What I want to know is, what was your view? Did you give us a view on that?
Yeah, I think that should be a 1. I don't see any reason why that shouldn't be the most negative adverse impact on Greenbelt.
Right, thanks.
I do apologise. A lot of this.
No, it's just that those figures came very quickly. I wanted to make sure that I'd recorded what your concern was.
Yeah.
I think I've got those gaps. Thank you, Mr. Davidson.
Mr. Davidson, just a couple of quick questions, just to clarify. With your evidence, there was a plan that you provided, which I think showed the 2001 flooded area.
Yes. Yeah.
On that plan, there was a number of red triangles on houses. Does that just indicate houses that are within that area, or does it actually indicate houses that were flooded?
Oh, I'd need to look at the map again, but there was, so not every house, obviously, in the estate was flooded. The culvert runs under the Goffway Road and then comes up again on the other side, and there's an area around there. There's probably maybe 20 properties that suffered flooding. The first episode was then there were some mitigation strategies to put in a flood ditch around the estate in subsequent years. However, I think on that map I've showed you, the implementation of that was flawed. It actually runs uphill, that flood ditch, so it's completely ineffective and proved ineffective in the second flood.
And again, just to be clear, the culvert you refer to, it goes under Goff Way.
Yes.
So does it start in the play area to the north, or
it runs down past the play area, but it's further back up towards Barton Road.
Right. And so does the entrance and exit to culvert sort of start before people's gardens, or are they actually closer, or actually?
They start further upstream before people's back gardens on Goff Way.
Thank you, Mr. Davidson. That's all the questions I've got. So thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Also, as it's 11:34, I think this would be a good time to have a break. We'll resume at 11:50. So the inquiry is now adjourned. Thank you. documents, please.
Right.
Just while Ms Blythe is getting into position, you'll notice that a screen has appeared there, just if in case a witness or an objector doesn't have access to documents and I need to ask about a document, we're going to show it on the screen. It may not be necessary, but
Ooh, is that
there we
me?
go. Especially for you.
Oh, especially for me, Mr. Cameron. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cameron. Yes, that is helpful because I'm conscious that people won't have access to the full bundle of documents. So thank you.
Can you? Have I got the microphone? Okay,
That seems to
all
work,
set
yeah.
up properly. Okay, so good morning, everybody. I'm Wendy Blythe. I'm chair of the Federation of Cambridge Residents Associations, and I'd like to thank the inspectors for giving me the opportunity to share concerns from residents about this scheme. The Federation of Cambridge Residents Associations, FECRA, is a citywide grassroots civic organisation with close links to Cambridge villages and Cambridge interest groups. We recently hosted a very well-attended event at Great St Mary's, which was live-streamed, at which the chair of the Cambridge Growth Company, Peter Freeman, spoke about his plans for making Cambridge a happy city. The event is available online with all the Q&A, and it's really quite informative. I recommend people watch it. Many residents strongly object to the off-road section between Madingley Mulch and West Cambridge. While they agree that improving public transport should be a priority, they say that they do not think that this proposal is the best use of taxpayers' money. They say, and this is what they tell us, this route does not make journey times to Cambridge much faster, and it terminates in Grange Road. There's no clarity on how people would be able to get from there to major employment destinations or Cambridge's sixth form colleges. But it would inevitably involve further journeys through congested streets in the city centre, adding to congestion in the city centre. They say it doesn't take into account current road usage data or evolving working and commuting patterns, especially the changes since COVID. They say the off-highway route will destroy Coton Orchard, a county wildlife site, East Anglia's largest remaining ancient orchard, the 8th largest in the UK. They say it will carve up the Cambridge Greenbelt with restrictive covenants in favour of the National Trust and some of the UK's best farmland at a time when there's growing anxiety about the UK's food security. They say it will ruin some of the best views and the setting of one of the UK's premier heritage cities. The city's beautiful greenbelt setting of farmland, water meadows, and medieval villages is known and loved all over the world. The scheme's heritage statement considers only the West Cambridge Conservation Area and individual local listed buildings. It does not consider Cambridge's strategic heritage significance, even though this formed a key element of the basis of a High Court judgment in 2008, which refused consent for the development of the Coton Green Corridor because of the importance of the landscape for the setting of Cambridge. This scheme will spoil the city's West Cambridge heritage setting as well as urbanise the attractive rural and historic village of Coton. There's been no quantitative assessment of the heritage impact of this scheme. Yet, the Thames Landscape Strategy for the Arcadian Thames, Weybridge, Hampton Kew, a planning document established in 1994, written by the landscape architect Kim Wilkie, a member of Cambridge Ahead's high-level strategic Cambridge Landscape Group, makes it clear that the heritage relationship between people and their landscape is significant. A very recent Heritage Ecosystems Impact Assessment Study, which is called a Heritage Ecosystems Impact Study, produced by the University of York and the University of Cambridge, titled a pilot study of East-West Rail's preferred alignment route E, Cambourne to Cambridge, South Cambridgeshire, published in July 2025, suggests that integrating heritage ecosystem perspectives into planning decisions is crucial to address the transport project's negative impacts on local relationships with the environment. The research, funded by Cambridge University, set out the importance of understanding and evaluating development impacts, drawing on the insights of local communities. The researchers argue that although environmental impact assessments are part of the planning process for large infrastructure projects, they do not account for the cultural dimensions of affected landscapes. The Heritage Ecosystem Impact Assessment Study argues that, like transport, heritage and ecosystem perspectives need to be quantified and integrated into planning decisions to preserve local well-being and connectivity. There are choices to be made about well-being and heritage and cultural identity and wildlife and farming and food security. Dr. Darcia Viejo-Rose, director of the Cambridge Heritage Research Centre, one of the two principal investigators, the other is Dr. Tanya Hoffman of York University, says the heritage of places is made up of an ecosystem of relationships built over time through practices, shared memories, and familiar sites. These relationships are central to our feeling of belonging, of being at home. In the name of creating new connections, when she was referring to East-West Rail, she said this project will be severing many existing ones. The researchers who interviewed 80 Cambridge residents found that a community's lived experience of a landscape is just as significant as the technical aspects of assessing the impact of large infrastructure projects. And if this relationship is damaged or broken, it can have lasting consequences. Their research tells a story about how people shape places, but how places and the species that live with them also shape people. But this is also a report about how rarely these critical relationships are given any attention or quantified in the context of development planning. Compare this with the Thames Landscape Strategy, a planning document which draws on those long-standing heritage relationships to address flooding. Many residents say that the busway proposal has very little to do with improving public transport. It actually makes no sense in either financial or transport terms. And the real reason they conclude for this destructive off-highway busway scheme is land value uplift. In other words, to break up some of the UK's best farmland and the heritage greenbelt setting of Cambridge for development that only benefits the powerful owners of the greenbelt land in this area. This was highlighted in the letter of complaint sent by North East Cambridgeshire MP Steve Barclay to the Auditor General in 2017, which FECRA reproduced in full on our website in Update May 2017. Mr. Barclay wrote, "The relationship between prominent local developers and City Deal, now called Greater Cambridge Partnership, is opaque and open to abuse." He added, "Developers or their clients own greenbelt land around Cambridge which has low value without planning permission. The developers have then lobbied the LEP and City Deal to fund transport improvements which increase the value of these sites. They've also lobbied the LEP to recommend their sites be designated as enterprise zones or science parks, as this then allows grants in excess of state aid rules, as exemptions apply to both enterprise zones and to innovation. Both the transport improvements and loans or grants for new facilities increase the viability and value of the housing on their site. This housing also benefits from high prices in the nearby Cambridge market. Large-scale housing meets a key government objective and benefits local councils through new homes bonus funding, satisfying key stakeholders. Mr. Bartley said, "There is nothing wrong with this approach if the investment decisions on transport links and approving schemes on greenbelt land are taken independently using clear criteria." He added, "Developers also influence the LEP and City Deal, now called the GCP, through organisations like Cambridge Ahead, where the relationship is also close." Last week, Mr. Cameron from Glanmark Chambers, for the applicant, referred to the valuable research done by Cambridge Ahead. However, the business group, whose former policy chair was Anglian Water's Regulations Director, Alex Plant, has not modelled the impact of employment-led housing growth on Cambridge, the UK's most water-short city. Nor has it modelled the cost of dealing with all the sewage in the Cam chalk streams. Building 150,000 homes in Greater Cambridge and doubling economic output is going to take a lot more water, and it will require doing something about the sewage in the Cam. But there's no plan for that currently. Government releases point to the proposed Fen Reservoir as a key solution to Cambridge's water scarcity. However, this is expected to meet only half of future demand. It will not provide enough water to supercharge Cambridge. So the point I'm trying to make here is that at some point we have to decide what we're actually sacrificing for economic growth. Are we disenfranchising future communities over a possibility that potential investors might be put off investing in Cambridge if this busway doesn't get approved? Thank you.
Ms Blythe, you obviously had a script for your statements. Could you provide us with a copy?
Yes, of course. Yes, no problem at all. Yes, I can do that.
If you could send it to Mrs Taplin.
I will, yes.
And she'll
no problem.
Put it on the website.
Yes, and if you want copies of Steve Barclay's statement here, I actually can give you that now.
Well,
if you want.
I think in your original objection, I think you've quoted.
Yes,
Steve,
I have
Steve
quoted.
Barclay,
But it is actually worth looking at what he actually wrote, the full statement, because it's actually quite disturbing when you know a bit more about the transport plans.
All I say is, in your original objection, you
yes, I did.
From it.
I do quote from it.
As a document.
I do, yes.
Also, you spent quite a long time talking about it. I think the study about East-West.
Well, the reason I'm saying.
Well, I don't think we've got a copy of that, have we?
I gave a link in. I didn't refer to it in my original statement because it's a very recent research project. It was only published in. Published in July of this year, so it's very new. But what the researchers, the chief.
It's okay. You don't need to explain.
Sorry.
I just wanted to answer because again.
And it's only just been brought to my attention, the research, but I think it's a very interesting study, and I think it has huge implications in terms of what we've been discussing.
Okay, you don't need to.
I know.
The point was that you've explained why it wasn't in your in your statement, I'll come back to that in a second. But first, I'm going to ask Mr. Cameron or Mr. Henderson whether they've got any questions they want to ask you.
I've got some, thank you, sir. And just before I do,
yes.
And it's not addressed to Ms. Blythe, but a general address. So you've raised, if people read from a bit of paper, can they hand it in? Can I make a request that they hand it in advance so that we can consider it, so we know what we're dealing with when somebody comes to give evidence in the same way that they have our proofs of evidence? But
I think
it's not a point
that request has been made generally, I think, Mr. Cameron.
Yes. So, Ms. Blythe, I've got, I'd like to ask you first about the extent of your objection. I'm then going to ask you some questions about the land value uplift point, and then we may go to water.
Yes.
So I haven't asked you a question
Sorry.
yet.
Okay.
I'm just giving you warning,
Yes, warning.
what I'm
Thank
going
you.
to cover. So, and I'd like to check, please, that you have in front of you your objection letter, which is our CD2 OBJ
I don't have it.
309.
I don't have it in front of me. But if you're going,
Well, I am going to ask you about
the
it.
basis of my objection in the letter, and we haven't changed that, is the
No, I
the
don't.
section of the route which
Yes.
is from Madingley Mulch
But
to. I'm not in favour of taking anybody's
I-
gardens.
I'd say perhaps that's a document
Yeah.
you could get up on the
Yes.
screen
Yeah.
and you'd be
And
able to
also,
look
there's
at
a
it.
statement of case which has the extracts from the Steve Barclay letter.
Yeah.
So,
Does it have the Steve Barclay letter? Does it have the whole? So there's a letter that he wrote to to the Auditor
it's
General.
your document.
Okay, sorry.
All I'm asking you is, do you have access to those documents?
I do have access to those documents here. Yes.
Good. Well,
I
let's
don't,
start, if we
but,
can, with your objection email of January 2025, please.
Sorry, I don't have a copy of that to hand.
Right?
No.
Well, can it be
Yeah.
sure? Yes.
Yes.
CD2 OBJ 309.
And I would add that.
Well,
Yeah, comments.
I just want
Sorry.
to make sure that if you haven't got that document with you, and Mr. Cameron's going to ask you, can you check on the screen to see if that is... Are you able to see it?
It's very small. Sorry.
Well, let's just...
I think maybe what I'll do is
Yes.
put it so
Yeah.
I can sort of. Does that help you? Okay. Okay, jokes. Sorry,
Yes.
there's some of us that are short-sighted. Yeah. Okay.
So I don't want to interrupt proceedings, but the legs on that table are looking a bit iffy. Can
Yeah.
you straighten
Don't
that, please?
worry.
Can you not just...
The bracket at the top is bent. I don't want somebody hurting
Okay.
themselves because that table's not being used properly. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Cameron.
Thank you. All I want to ask you about are the words you wrote.
Yes.
I assumed you would have, but you've now got.
Sorry. Yeah.
So, first point, in your objection letter, you object the order, but it's the off-road section to which your objection relates. Is that right?
It's the off-road section to which,
Right.
and in terms of what's been discussed this morning, I have just been, I made the point to various people that I am not in favour of taking anybody's gardens.
But Ms.
or,
Blythe, I'm
you know,
not asking you about
so-
if we can just stick to the
Okay.
questions, otherwise we'll be here.
All right, sorry,
Days
Mr.
on
Cameron.
end.
Sorry, Mr. Cameron. Corrected.
So, and what you say in that letter, third paragraph, while they, and that's the Federation,
Yeah.
agree
Yeah.
that improving public transport should be a priority,
Yes.
and they support this, residents tell us that they do not think this proposal is best use of taxpayers' money. And you go on.
Yeah.
So what I'd like to just understand from you, improving public transport should be a priority. Does that include improving public transport from Cambourne to Cambridge?
Yes, it does. It includes. It includes, given the objectives, what people are saying is that what people want to see is improvements in transport to employment destinations and for people, children attending schools, sixth form colleges, etc.,
Yeah.
which is what I've said today.
Yes.
That's what everybody's in favour of.
Well,
and-
I'm not asking you about everybody. I'm
Well, I
asking
mean,
you
everyone,
about
the people who've written to me, that's what they're
your
in favour of.
organisation.
Yes.
And can
And I don't think that it disagrees with even what the North Newham residents are saying. Everybody's in favour of some form of improvement, but they don't see that this is the...
And the form of improvement that you and your group are in favour of is an on-road option, and that is on-road from Madingley Mulch into Cambridge. Is that right?
What they're saying, I haven't said that I've said what our residents disagree with is the off-road
Yes.
section.
Are they in favour of an on-road busway as promoted by Cambridge past, present and future?
I haven't had comments from residents saying that what I've had is comments from people sharing concerns of what is actually
So-
in the plans.
So your position is you're in favour of improving public transport from
Yeah.
Cambourne to Cambridge. You're against the scheme that's promoted, but you put forward no alternative means of achieving that improved public transport of which you're in favour. Is that right?
I'm saying that what's being put forward has to be looked at very carefully, and I think it needs to be assessed in terms of a whole range of aspects, some of which are being discussed today.
Can we just go
Yeah.
back to the question, please?
I'm-
I would like an answer, and I'll put it again. You're in favour of improving public transport between Cambourne and Cambridge.
Yes.
You're against the GCP scheme, but you put forward no alternative means of achieving the objective which you favour. Is that right? And please, can I just have...
Mr. Cameron, sorry, I think you're putting some words into my mouth.
I'm not.
I have to no, because I have to share views of what residents say to me. I haven't had, I can see that there are differing views, and I haven't had. I'm not going to say that everybody's in favour of, having on-road bus lanes down Madingley Road. I'm not going to say that. I'm expressing concerns that residents have raised about the existing scheme. I'm not going to have you tell me that I'm going to say I'm in favour of this or favour of that. That is not my position.
No,
Right.
and I'm not. That's not what I suggested to you. It's a very simple question.
But you are. You're asking me to say
Could
which
you just
scheme I favour.
Wait for the question, please. Are you putting forward an alternative scheme to provide public transport from Cambourne to Cambridge?
I would be if that's what residents were telling me.
No, but are you putting it to this inquiry today?
I'm not putting it to this
Thank
inquiry
you.
today. Thank you.
Got there in the end.
Yes, but I think you've just slightly twisted what I'm saying. I'm expressing concerns, valid concerns, about what's being put forward.
Well, let's see.
I think, I do think...
So let's be clear.
Mr. Cameron was just asking you a question. Obviously,
Yes.
For example, CPPF have put forward an alternative scheme. Mr. Cameron he asked you whether you supported the CPPF, and you explained that wasn't necessarily what the residents
Yes,
were
no,
saying.
I just-
And
I
then
want
Mr.
to
Cameron then asked you whether
Yes.
you were putting one forward, and you said no. So
Yes, I understand that.
it's sometimes helpful to explain afterwards
Yes.
what the reasoning is.
Yes.
But it is helpful if you can just focus on the...
I think the other point to make is that
Well,
I think this is incredibly divisive, a lot of this discussion, and it's a real shame in terms of Cambridge.
Ms. Blythe, can you stop
Yeah.
interrupting, please?
Sorry.
What I was explaining was I think it will help us as
Yes.
inspectors. As I say, if you're asked a question, you answer the question, then you can provide a qualification.
Of course, yes.
You've already provided your statement, so
Yes.
this is an opportunity for people to ask you questions
Certainly.
in light of what you
I'm
said.
sorry. I'm very sorry, and I
rather than-
apologise.
Rather than to make the
Yeah.
case again.
I'm
Thank
sorry.
you.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Mr. Cameron.
So we're on to a different subject now, but you have expressed a concern that the financial and economic benefits of the scheme are based on land value uplift. That's preliminary, it's not a question. And is it your group, your federation's objective to protect the Greenbelt?
I think, in terms of the Greenbelt, I think what you have to take. I should add that I'm on the steering committee of Friends of the Cam, and the Cambridge Greenbelt is a buffer for the River Cam. I mean, if you're if anybody's concerned about water scarcity and what's happening with the chalk streams and over-abstraction and sewage, then the greenbelt is fundamental to that. You can't, it's a river basin, it's, Cambridge is the Cam, and the greenbelt is, the Cam. I am, so in terms of the greenbelt serving, in terms of protecting the Cam chalk streams, yes, I am in favour of protecting the greenbelt.
Good. Well, that was... And are you aware that the land value uplift element relates to development at Bourne Airfield and Cambourne, which lies beyond the greenbelt?
I am aware of that, but I do note that there is a company that's was recently set up called Urban and Civic Coton, which has now been renamed as Urban and Civic St. Neots. A lot of residents are looking at what's happening to land banking around Cambridge and concerned that there are implications of these transport schemes in terms of opening up areas of the greenbelt
But you
for development.
Expressing a concern about land value
Yes.
uplift. Can I just... Do you support the local plan strategy which has been adopted of allocating land for housing and employment development at Bourne Airfield and at Cambourne? And I'm not talking about future local plan, I'm talking about the adopted local plan. Do you support those local plan allocations, or do you oppose them?
Well, they've already been adopted.
Yes. So do you support them?
Given that they've already taken place already, I suppose yes.
Yeah. So if this scheme is needed in order to give effect to the local plan strategy, it is a strategy which you support. In terms of giving effect, I would say yes, we want good transport from these places, but we're saying at the moment residents are saying these proposals are not good. But if you support that strategy, we know, for example, at Bourne Airfield that 3,500 homes are contemplated, and that only 500 can be built until this scheme or an equivalent scheme is in place. So if you support the strategy, you have to support a public transport scheme which allows the strategy to be realised, don't you?
I'm not a transport expert, Mr. Cameron, and I know that there will be people who are discussing this at this inquiry, and who are coming up with other suggestions and proposals. So I would suggest you address that to them. But
So your position is in favour of the strategy of allocating land for development beyond the Greenbelt, but you don't put forward any proposal for a public transport scheme which can realise that strategy, do you?
I don't think that's quite true. I think in terms of the proposals that have been put forward by Cambridge Past, Present and Future, there are elements of that a lot of residents would be very happy with. And I think that's something that will be coming across at this inquiry. But at the moment, what we're saying, what everybody's saying is, and I think it was front page of the local newspapers yesterday, that there's a lot of concern about this scheme.
Yep.
So I think that's the point I'm trying to make. And as you're aware, there are differing views. We've heard some of them today. But there is a shared consensus, I think, that there are serious concerns about this scheme.
And water resources, we can, I'm sure you're aware that Cambridge Water have produced a water resources management plan 2024. If we need it, it's in the core documents at 770. But are you aware of that plan?
I haven't scrutinised the detail of that plan, but I do know that the proposed Fenland Reservoir at Chatteris will only serve half of what is actually required. And in fact, this is something that Stephen Kelly himself has already said in an interview, I think with Building Design. It was actually quite an extensive interview in which he talks about the area's water scarcity and the issue of, in terms of development and housing, the fact that you won't be able to, the projected plans for 150,000 houses for this area, that's not the way development operates. It's, big house builders also have to make a profit.
Thank you. I'm going to ask you a question about the Water Resources Management Plan. I'm going to ask the inspectors to note that Mr. Kelly, who gives evidence to this inquiry, deals with this point at 5.7 in his proof of evidence. So, were you aware, and it may be that you're not, but if you're not, please say so, that the Water Resources Management Plan 2024 takes account of the development proposed in the local plans, and it's para 2.75 on page 17 of that document, and that it makes allowance for the development in the existing local plan, which would include development at Cambourne and Bourne airfield, would it not?
Yes, we're talking about the existing local plan.
So if this scheme is needed to release land for development which is in the existing allocated local plan, do you agree that that does not give rise to a water resource management issue because it's already allowed for?
If it's in the existing local plan, as Mr. Kelly has said, that existing local plan only caters for what was in the local plan, existing local plan. But the issue, what I've also raised in my statement, is concern that the fact that this transport plan doesn't stack up in a lot of ways relates to a lot of residents' concerns that actually the whole purpose of this is opening up further greenbelt land around Cambridge for development, which is not covered, will not be covered by water, and will not address the sewage issues either.
Let's just see where we've got to.
And I would add, to add on that is a point that Peter Freeman has acknowledged in lots of comments that he's made. He's made quoted comment, which is that there was a trinity of hurdles to be overcome for Cambridge to have turbocharged growth of 150,000 houses. And the trinity of hurdles is transport, water, and housing.
Yes. But if we're talking about and considering the existing local plan, which you support, that needs, in order to realise the development allocated in the existing local plan, needs a public transport scheme from Cambourne to Cambridge. There is one proposed by the GCP, and you put forward no alternative means of allowing that development to come forward, do you?
Mr. Cameron, you're going back over the same ground again. What I've expressed today is concerns that have been shared with us about this transport plan. Everybody's agreed that we need, a good transport scheme. Right, that's fine. But what I've expressed is concerns about certain elements of what's being proposed. Yep. And that's what I'm standing by. Yeah. In terms of, you haven't mentioned the other issues that I've raised, which is about the fact, the concerns and fears that people have that actually this transport, the reason why this transport plan doesn't really stack up is that there are other factors in play, which are about opening up areas of farmland and greenbelt for development. There are, if you look at, everybody asks, well, what happens? Do you think people are stupid? What happens to all these buses after Grange Road? Really? What happens? Tell me. Where did they go?
Thank you.
I just...
So you are here to oppose the scheme, which is your right,
Yes.
and it's not your position, and you're not able to put forward any alternative. Do you?
I'm not. I have expressed. I'm here to express concerns that lots of people have shared with me about the scheme. Right. I'm not a transport expert.
No.
Yep.
Thank you very much indeed.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Cameron.
Thank you. Ms. Blythe, if I can just ask, as I understand it, particularly as helpful from that exchange, one of your concerns is I guess, that there'd be pressure for further development proposals
Yes.
which aren't around at the moment that would come along on the route. Would that not still be the case if public transport was enhanced along an alternative route, so, for example, the CPPF route along Madingley Road? Why is this particular route more concerning about opening up development along the route?
Because you only have to see what it does to, for example, Rob Sattler's farm and the area around Coton to see that, and if you look at the pattern of land ownership around there, I mean, it would be, have the inspectors been given details of who owns land around in that area? Do you have? Does Mr. Cameron?
I have details of
all the landowners and
every landowner along the route.
Along the route, and also around
part of it,
and also around Coton.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think my question was, so why this route as opposed to another route in terms of that pressure?
Well, sorry. Why this route? I mean, are you saying why do I object particularly? Sorry, or
well, unless I'm misunderstanding, your concern is that the proposal that's being put forward is going to result in pressure for development within the green belt.
Yes.
The
housing, yeah.
Yeah,
and science parks. And
Yeah.
what I think I'd really like to share.
Sorry, but before
Yeah,
you
sorry.
do that, so I'm just trying to understand
Yes.
what is it about the particular route that gives you concern about that? Because,
Well, I think
as I say, for example, the CPPF route would go along Madingley Road.
No.
Would there not still be
I think
pressure to
the
develop in the
concern-
green belt next to Madingley Road?
Greenbelt
That's what I'm
next
just
to
trying
Madingley
understand.
Road. Well, I think it's if you go down Madingley Road itself, there's lots of housing there already. I mean, but no, I think what I'm saying is the off highway bit that
Right.
everybody's concerned about, and what that does to the that whole setting of Cambridge, which was a subject of a high court case in 2008. I'm trying to establish what's actually changed since then. So, what's changed since that case in 2008? In terms of that area being strategic significance, the setting of Cambridge. I mean, the fact that the heritage side of it. What's changed?
So, I'm still just trying to understand around. I mean, is your concern that there would be development right next to the route? Is that what your concern
Our
is?
concern is that our concern is several issues in terms of where the off-highway section of the route, what that does to that area of countryside, the farmland, and in particular to Coton Orchard, which is loved. I mean, very, lots of concerns about.
I'm asking more about your concern about
That's our concern.
there being housing development within the green belt along this
Our
route.
concern is of the fact there's the destruction of the orchard, the fact that it will the huge impact on the farmland around there when this is this is prime farmland.
It's okay, Mr. Blythe.
And-
You've already explained those concerns. I was just asking about.
Yes, and that will
your
be
concern about
that will
new
be
housing in the
when
green
you
belt.
when you take a destructive transport scheme through open farmland, you destroy the value of that farmland. You end up with lots of people potentially with maybe compulsory purchase. You have a huge effect. It's a much wider knock-on effect than just having the busway going through it. And what I feel, I think what a lot of people feel, there's a lack of joined-up thinking. Is that there's talk about wetlands, there's talk about flooding. We've heard all these issues today. We should be looking at this all in the round. All this putting it all together. This is not just about single transport scheme. It's about a whole range of other issues, and that needs to come into play.
But Ms. Blythe, one of the points that you seem to be
Yeah.
making in response to Mr. Cameron
Yes,
was that if this scheme goes ahead, there's a potential consequence in terms
Yes.
of other land being released
yes,
for development.
yes.
And you have a concern about that.
I think that's what a lot of
If-
people have a concern about.
Well, let me
Not just
the
me.
scenario that Mr. Underwood was developing with you. If some other scheme came forward instead of the one that you're opposed to, the busway scheme that we're looking at this inquiry, and it was good enough to provide the links to employment sites that you mentioned,
Yes.
and the sixth form college and the education facilities,
Yes,
and you support some
Yes.
other scheme as opposed to this one.
yes,
But if that other scheme was successful in achieving its aims,
yes.
could that not also have similar effects?
We would be very, I think, if it could achieve all those objectives, and also just, has anybody mentioned how much saving in time this particular scheme is going to afford?
But the point- but the point is- But the point that I'm asking you was, if there is an alternative scheme that achieved the aims in terms of connectivity, could that not also then have
Yes.
give rise to the concern that you've raised about the development?
If a similar scheme was able to achieve all those concerns and it wasn't impacting, for example, having a huge impact on taking people's gardens, all that, impacting Churchill, there would be a lot less concern. Yeah. I think people would want to see all of that and be very well, fully informed.
I'll not pursue that further. This High Court case is from 2008. I'm not sure I'm aware of that. And again, was that mentioned in your objection?
I do-
It's on the speaking notes.
Oh, it's on the speaking notes, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
So I've got a reference.
You got a reference,
Thank you.
yeah. There was a challenge made
No,
to the
it's
local
okay. You
plan.
don't need to provide any more
Yeah,
information.
sorry.
I just wanted to make
Yeah.
sure we had a reference for it. Thank you. Actually, and, I think that's covered my questions. Mr. Clegg, is there anything else that you'd like to?
Just one point of detail, Ms. Blythe.
Yes,
North Newnham Residents Association.
yes.
Are they part of your federation?
Yes, they are. Yes, and that's why in terms of, we have we're a democratic body, and
Yes.
lots of people have different views. So,
So
but I haven't heard. They hadn't been in touch with me, and I have heard from a lot of other people. I can tell you, a lot of people.
yes.
But it's very hard when you're chair of a federation and you're trying to represent lots of different people and different views. But I think the point I've been trying to make all along is that there is a shared consensus about, improving transport. People aren't against improvements, but frankly, the scheme as it stands doesn't stack up.
But within your association, you're representing associations
Yes.
where there are different views.
Representing, I think I would say that the majority of people that I've heard from are anti this scheme. But there are people who are pro it, and, yes.
Understood. Thank you.
Yep. And I understand and empathise with their concerns as well.
Thank you. Your questions?
Yeah.
Is there anyone else who supports the scheme? It looks like actually the people who were in the room before aren't here anymore. But is there anyone who supports the scheme? We'd like to ask Ms. Blythe any questions. I can't see anyone. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much
for your time to.
And I'm
to
sorry
talk
if
to us.
I've
Thank you. It's okay.
Guilty of
No, that's fine. Thank
Mr.
you.
Cameron.
So, perhaps if you could, if you don't mind,
Switch. Yes, move it back to the...
just move that back to the middle so we can get the next witness. Thank you very much,
Thank
Ms.
you.
Blythe.
Table in the right place. Good.
Mr. Burford, you're next on the list. I'm conscious about half past 12, but if you're happy to come talk now. So I'll just let yourself get yourself comfortable, and then if you don't mind introducing yourself
Indeed.
to the inquiry.
Thank you, sir.
There should be a little red button.
Does that work? No.
Is the red? Sorry, not
There
red
is a
button,
red button.
A red
Yes.
light.
Yes, there is a red light. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Is that working on the live stream? Yes. Excellent. Sorry, Mr. Burford.
Thank you, sir.
Please carry on.
My name is Alistair Burford. I live with my wife Susan on the 1303 at the top of Maddenley Hill. My wife has asked me to come along and read out her letter that she's written to you, and she's also supplied you reluctantly and out of panic to her medical records, and also a note from her consultant.
But that's not being referred to at the inquiry, Mr. Burford, as I understand.
What does that mean to me?
Well, it's very much up to your wife, but there's been discussion about what information should be provided.
Okay.
Yeah, but there's no expectation that any personal information is
Okay, fine.
shared at the
Okay.
inquiry.
Well, as I say, at this stage, she's only asked me to read her. No.
Yes.
I am writing to respectfully request that the inspectors consider my request for reasonable adjustments with regard to the construction and the positioning of the Cambourne to Cambridge busway, should the transport and works order be granted. I live within a close proximity to the proposed route, and my garden is approximately 50 metres from the proposed route, and my home is 80 metres. The IAQM guidance indicates that the highest dust impact occurs within 100 metres of the source areas. I have been in contact with Joe Baker, product manager of the Greater Cambridge Partnership, to discuss the mitigation required during construction and when the busway is in operation, and have so far only received generic mitigation measures that would apply to anyone who is concerned about the general nuisance caused by dust and debris during the construction of the busway. The project manager has not given me any more reassurance that the request for further mitigation will be provided, taking into account the significant detriment that will be caused to my health. Further, the request for an individual risk assessment has thus far been ignored. The measures that have been described in the correspondence are not tailored or proportionate to my circumstances, and they do not meet the legal requirements for my situation under the Equality Act 2010 and the Human Rights Act 1998. Specifically, under the Equality Act 2010, the GCP has a duty to make reasonable adjustments to avoid substantial disadvantage. The current proposal, without further mitigation, places me in clear disadvantage, given that the adjustments have been made to the route where the route runs close to other properties and businesses. The refusal to consider adjustments specific to my needs amounts to failure in their statutory duty. Under the Human Rights Act 1998, Article 2, right to life, and Article 8, right to respect of private and family life, home and correspondence, are both relevant. Exposing me to increased levels of dust, debris and emissions risks significant deterioration to my health, thereby threatening my rights under these provisions. In light of the above, I respectfully request that the inspectors recommend the following. Relocation of the route so that that it is at least 100 yards from my home and garden, in accordance with the IAQM threshold of significant impact. Creation of a protective buffer zone between the busway and my property to materially reduce the dust, debris and emissions. Engineering and landscaping adjustments, specifically that the busway be placed in a cutting with a barrier of trees and vegetation between the route and my property. a recommendation that the GCP carry out an individual risk assessment to understand my specific risk to my health. The risk assessment must take into account the prevailing winds and put in place preventative actions and safeguards. The risk assessment must be shared with me and the safeguards agreed prior to the commencement of any works. Without such measures, the scheme will fail to comply with the Equality Act of 2010 and the Human Rights Act of 1998. The adjustments I am requesting are proportionate, practical, and necessary to prevent serious harm to my health. I therefore urge the inspectors to ensure that my rights are upheld by requiring the Greater Cambridge Partnership to implement the above recommendations. Yours faithfully. May I have permission, sir, to just embellish that and take no longer than 3 minutes,
yes,
and
sir.
there will be no surprises for anybody concerned.
No, please carry on, Mr. Burford.
Yes. If I can ask you, sirs, to cast your mind back to Tuesday afternoon. I know these are long days you're having, but Tuesday afternoon when Mr. Saunders was sitting in this chair, one of the first questions he was asked by Mr. Henderson, by Mr. Henderson, I wasn't sure of your name, I'm sorry, was his assessment of the Maddenley Wood and the American Cemetery. Mr. Saunders described both as high-value receptors. When asked how he would treat them, his immediate reaction was avoidance. He also added, move away as far as possible, and in this case, move to the south. Surely humans must fall in the category of high-value receptors. And yet, despite all the assessments regarding bats, badgers, trees, newts, goodness knows what else in the bundles that you have, there is no mention anywhere of the impact upon humans. Later, during Mr. Saunders' evidence, Mr. Henderson, I believe, unfairly asked Mr. Saunders to comment on my property and the location of my property. Given that he had not conducted an assessment, how could his response carry any weight? But regardless, Mr. Saunders did his best to answer the question and stated that properties within 100 yards would suffer the highest dust impact. Accepted that my property was 50 metres away, my house was 80 metres away, then went on to give some vague reference to the trees that are actually in my property, low-level planting, and some kind of small bund next to the busway. If Mr. Saunders had conducted a proper assessment or been requested to conduct a proper assessment, he would know the trees on my property that he referred to are deciduous, would only give protection for 6 months of the year. He would know that because of the landscape and prominent south-southwest wind, often blowing at speeds in excess of 50 miles an hour, which they were over this last weekend, funnily enough, he would also know that I have 3 bedrooms that are south-facing, that we would be unable to ventilate. He would know that the track in line with my garden was actually the least of our worries. Because with this prevailing wind, my property will be subject to dust from about 50% of the total length from the waterworks to the hedge adjacent to my property. He would also have to report 2 types of dust if he did an assessment: coarse dust which with a fair wind behind it, will easily travel distances well in excess of 100 metres. And also fine dust. I've learnt a lot over the weekend. Again, with these wind conditions as they are, these particles can travel kilometres. I've taken this information from the Air Quality Management brochure, January 24. And this would have serious implications, particularly during the build period. On the subject of fine dust, the WSP technical report to air quality 3.1.2 in your pack states that fine particles transported by wind are small enough to be drawn into the lungs during breathing, which in a sensitive member of the public could have the potential to impact on health. Turning to Mr. Baker, when he sat in this chair, he listed his impressive qualifications and vast experience. Surely at some time over the last 7 years that he has lived and breathed this project, he would have looked at my property, looked at the location of the preferred route, and thought it may be a problem, particularly during construction, and it needs to be addressed. But he wasn't. He didn't. At best, I could call this a serious oversight. And that leads me to the question, is the GCP application even complete and valid without this information? I'm getting towards the end. If, sirs, you are minded to recommend this scheme for approval, may I ask that you do so on the condition that they will not be fully granted until a specific assessment for both construction and operation are undergone. Sirs, I'm aware that the IAQM don't place as much value on a single life as they do 20 or 100. But surely, in this extreme case, where common sense should prevail. I've always understood that mitigation is as much a part of the overall scheme as determining the route, the cost, benefit, and every other aspect involved. Unfortunately, in this instance, I get the impression the GCP are thinking, let's get this route out of the way and we'll sort the rest out later. Finally, sirs, thank you for your time. I understand the rules of discussions between myself and yourselves, but I do invite you, when you do your next walkabout at the water tower, to come onto my property. There'll be no exchange other than pleasantries, just to look for yourself and understand exactly how exposed my property, my family, and my wife, who's in serious ill health, will be affected by this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Burford. And actually, on that point, if you're happy for us to come, just so, when we do site visits on private property, it's not just myself and Mr. Clegg. We will be accompanied by other people, and you've already anticipated what I'd probably say to you on a site visit, which we can't discuss the merits of the case. But
I totally accept that, and sirs, I have signed at some stage during this process in the last 10 years a form, an official form that's probably held on record somewhere, to say that I'm happy for any of the inspectors or their agents to come on.
From the inspector's point of view, we don't normally ask you to fill a form. Your word is good enough.
You have my word.
But as I mentioned before,
yes, sir.
we've certainly made a note of that, and we'll do our best to do it. I mean, I think I would if possible, to certainly have a look at your garden and to see
Thank you.
the fields to the south beyond that you referenced. I will give Mr. Cameron an opportunity to ask you any questions if he wants to. Before I do, there's a number of references to the Institute of Air Quality Management report. Now, I don't know whether you got it. Do you know what that document is? Just for you did mention
I am somebody fighting for my wife's health.
Yeah.
I heard that this document mentioned.
Sorry, don't misunderstand me, Mr. Burford. I just wanted
no.
to know what the document was.
I do know what the document was, but only since last Tuesday afternoon when it was first mentioned, and I've done my best to read up on it as best I could.
Yeah. I just wanted to know, because the Institute of Air Quality Management published an awful lot of documents.
This one was dated January 24, sir.
January 24. That might narrow it down.
Mr. Burford, you seem to have some speaking notes.
Well, they were just notes of what I've just said. I'm happy to...
I was just wondering, it's not a typed script that you...
No, it's not. But I'm happy to have it typed and sent to you.
I think that would be helpful if you could send them in, provided it's as you read it out.
Exactly as I've read it.
Yeah, and
yes,
send
sir.
it into the programme officer.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
And it will be with you this afternoon.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I don't know, Mr. Cameron, whether you've got any questions you want to ask Mr. Burford?
I have got a few. Mr. Burford, I'll preface this by saying that I respect the fact that you're here to, out of concern for your wife's health.
Thank you.
And so please don't think that that has been ignored, certainly by me. You referred to the technical report on air quality. I don't, for our purposes, I think you might have extracts there. It's core document 1-11-02, and you suggest that account hasn't been taken of human beings as, in the jargon, receptors.
I couldn't see any.
Right. Well, if that document can be put up on the screen and we can go to page 13 of it, and if you can see that far.
I'm beginning to.
So you'll see there's a heading, sensitive receptors. Do you see that? It should be, this is page 13 in the PDF, and there's a 3.1.6, sensitive receptors. I can't see what you can see, so I have no idea whether it's the right page.
Yeah, a consultation, dust risk.
Well, at the top it says construction phase. Now, your principal focus of your concern is at construction stage, isn't it? Because that's when the dust is going to arise.
The vast majority,
Yep.
yes.
And so this is methodology summary, construction phase. And if you go down to the bottom of the page, you'll see at 3.1.6, last paragraph
Yes,
on the
I
page,
see that.
a construction dust risk assessment is undertaken where there are, and it is in inverted commas, human receptors,
Indeed.
people, within 350 metres of the site boundary or within 50 metres of the route used by construction vehicles on the public highway. We're not concerned with that. We're the site boundary. And if you also, in that document, if you go over the page, it says the construction dust assessment study areas are illustrated in figure 1 in appendix 11, and we need to go to page...
Just one moment, please, Mr. Cameron.
Yeah.
He's just trying to find it.
He's got to go to page 106. Yes, but it's 106, appendix L, sorry. And you'll see that there's a map there,
Yes.
and you'll see that there's a, roughly in the middle of it, where your house is, there is a southward protruding marker.
Clearest map I ever seen,
No, it
I have
isn't.
to say.
So the question for you is, do you accept that the effect on human health or human receptors arising as a result of construction dust is actually considered in the documents? I mean, you may disagree with the way it's done, but it has been looked at.
It is there,
yes.
because you just pointed it out.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not glaring. I just bear in mind the bundles of documents that I see the inspectors looking at, and the bundles of documents that I've tried to look at, and how easy it is to miss
Well,
what is really critical information.
yes. And are you also aware, and I do appreciate there's a massive amount of documents. I don't find it easy to keep on top of them, and I'm paid to be here to read them. But are you aware that amongst the conditions that are proposed, if planning permission were deemed to be granted, are conditions that would require a code of construction practice to be adhered to and a local environmental management plan, both of which include dust management provisions? Did you know that?
I didn't know it, but I would assume that it was there. The point I think I'm making is that these are just generic instructions or guidelines. The point I'm making is, because of my wife's situation and our proximity to the site, our exposure to the site, we believe we should have more than just a generic do minimum within legal or industry standards.
But what you're seeking to achieve, is it not, Mr. Burford, that there are proper measures put in place to suppress dust so that it doesn't enter your property? That's what you're seeking to secure. That's the aim, isn't it?
That is what I need to secure.
Yes. And if that is secured by the dust management plan, then, if it is secured, and I appreciate it's big if, that would overcome your concerns.
As you say, it is a big if, given the amount of exposure I have, the amount of dust that I know will be good. It is a bit, but clearly, if there are measures, or if there are measures exist to mitigate this sufficiently, well, of course I would not have an objection to it.
Thank you. And I won't ask you any other questions. Unless
My huge concern is the dust during construction. However, given, and I keep the length of exposure to this roadway I'll have, yes, I am concerned about the dust. You've got to understand that because of the landscape, because of the prevailing wind, this, with it being next to ploughed field, this busway will accumulate a lot of dust. And again, if you are able to come and see for yourself, you will see exactly what I mean.
Actually, just talking about plough fields, do you already experience issues with any dust during
yes,
harvest time, or
the fields
dry?
The fields immediately behind us are generally some form of wheat, and since my wife has been diagnosed, at harvest time, she does, unfortunately, she has relatives in Nottingham. She actually moves out because it's evident that on our lawn in the back garden at harvest time, there are pieces of hay and straw and goodness knows what else. As I say, one of the beauties of our house actually is in warm weather, there is always a breeze. But more often than not, like this weekend, it blows at 50, 60 miles an hour.
And is that issue just at harvest time, or is there?
Yes, it's at harvest time.
In terms, there was in your wife's letter, as you explained, there was sort of 4 things that you were asking for there.
Yes.
When you say you wanted the creation of a protective buffer zone between the busway and the property, I think you said to materially reduce dust, debris, and emissions. Was that just during construction, or?
Oh, ongoing. As I said, I have concerns about the operation.
Sorry to interrupt. When you say a buffer zone, what did you envisage that buffer zone would be? I mean,
Sir, I don't know.
Right.
I would expect the experts within the GCP to come up with something and say, this is what we would do in this situation, and this is what we believe will mitigate the problem. But I don't know whether it's sort of some form of planting, bunds, cutting.
Okay, thank you. I think all the other questions I had have already been answered. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So I'll just ask Mr. Clegg whether he's got any questions for you.
Mr. Burford, just one point, but it covers a number of aspects of the scheme. Before the letter that you read out from your wife,
Yes, sir.
which was put in as your proof, you and your wife put in a joint objection to the order when it was first made.
I did.
Now that touched on, you haven't mentioned quite a lot of the aspects which were covered in that letter today, and what I want to do is just check whether they remain concerns, or whether your concern now is simply in connection with the importance of dust suppression. I mean, some of the things that you touched on in your original objection were the benefit cost ratio, impact on landscape, concern about where the busway actually went to, and the whole process that had been gone through. Now, do you still have concerns on those matters, or is it now solely the potential impact of dust?
I do have concerns about those matters, naturally. However, it was a case of priorities. I felt that on this, if I can call it CD2, objection 211,
Yes.
I felt that the points that I was trying to make had been covered by other parties.
Yes.
And so, therefore, rather than waste my effort, your time, repeating those points, I felt it necessary, because of clearly it's a greater priority to me, to concentrate on my wife's objection.
Yeah. I understand that, Mr.
Thank
Benton.
you.
Thank you. I've got nothing else. We haven't checked whether there is anybody else who wishes to put questions to Mr. Burford, who supports the scheme. I didn't think there would be, but I just have to do the check. Okay.
No, doesn't look like it. Well, thank you very much for giving the time, Mr. Burford, to talk to us. And as I mentioned before, we'll endeavour to come and visit your property when we conduct our site visits later on in November. So
Thank you for your time, sir.
thank you very much.
Do I turn this off? Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Is that off?
No.
Thank you, sir.
I make it 4 minutes past 1, so I'm now going to suggest we adjourn and resume at. We'll resume at 5 minutes past 2. So the inquiry is now adjourned. Thank you.